If you're over the age of 65, what you're about to hear could be one of the most important things you learn today. Each morning, millions of older adults begin their day with simple routines that feel completely normal. But what seems harmless, like delaying breakfast, reaching for your phone, or having that first cup of coffee too quickly, can quietly set the stage for serious trouble. Stroke remains one of the leading causes of death and long-term disability among seniors, and what many don't realize is that a large number of strokes happen within the first hour after waking. It's not just age that increases the risk, it's the combination of sudden changes in blood pressure, dehydration, and stressor, of which are heavily influenced by how you start your morning. Even small habits done out of routine can add up over time and put extra strain on your heart and brain. In today's video, we're going to look closely at 5 common morning behaviors that may be increasing your stroke risk without you even knowing it. And the most dangerous habit we'll cover is something almost everyone does without giving it a second thought. These small moments matter, and being aware of them might just help you protect your health in a powerful way. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Skipping breakfast or eating too late. For many people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, skipping breakfast has become part of a quiet routine. Some wake up without much appetite. Others feel they don't need to eat right away. And in truth, it might not seem like a big deal, especially if it's something that's been done for years without much thought. But that small decision, the simple act of postponing your first meal, may be placing more strain on your heart and brain than you realize. While the body rests at night, it also enters a fasting state. Hours pass without food, and by morning, every system, from the circulatory system to the nervous system, is ready to receive the energy it needs to function safely. That first meal helps regulate blood sugar, ease the heart into its daily rhythm, and gently restore stability after a long pause. But when that nourishment doesn't come, the body doesn't simply wait in stillness. It reacts. In response to an extended fast, the body releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Not because there's emotional distress, but because the system is running on empty. These hormones are meant to keep the body awake and alert when fuel is missing. And while they serve an important role, they do so by tightening the blood vessels, raising blood pressure, and making the blood more concentrated. In younger years, the body can often handle this kind of pressure. But after 65, especially in the presence of hypertension, vascular stiffness, or clotting risks, this reaction becomes dangerous. What's unsettling is that this internal shift often goes unnoticed. There may be no pain, no warning sign. Many older adults report feeling sharper or even lighter when they skip breakfast. But beneath that surface calm, the cardiovascular system is being pushed harder than it should be. The blood moves slower. It thickens. It becomes more prone to clotting. And all it takes is one tiny clot, one narrowed artery, or one unexpected rise in blood pressure for a stroke to strike without warning. Scientific studies have drawn a clear line. Seniors who regularly skip breakfast face a greater risk of stroke, heart attack, elevated cholesterol, and blood sugar imbalances. These risks don't come from overeating, but from under-supporting the body when it needs fuel the most. And yet, so many people continue this habit because it seems harmless. But at this stage of life, habits that once seemed minor now carry deeper weight. The body changes. Circulation becomes more delicate. Blood pressure becomes more sensitive. And what the body needs most in the morning is not stress, it's stability. Nourishment in the early hours helps bring down cortisol, smooth the flow of blood, and set a steady rhythm for the rest of the day. It isn't about eating large portions, it's about giving the body a clear signal. You are supported. This act of care doesn't have to be complicated. The first meal of the day doesn't need to be heavy, it just needs to be consistent. Something small, calming, and easy to digest can be enough to protect your system from the morning surge that puts older adults at such high risk. It's not about indulgence or appetite, it's about maintenance. It's about keeping the foundation strong. Many health problems develop slowly. They build in silence over years of repeated strain, and often they surface only when the damage is already done. But stroke prevention doesn't always require major changes or costly treatments. Sometimes it starts with the simplest of decisions, choosing to eat when your body needs it most. That quiet choice, made each morning, becomes a signal of protection. It lowers the need for emergency responses within the body. It smooths hormonal rhythms. And it sets the tone for the rest of the day of steadiness rather than strain. Still, even for those who begin their day with nourishment, there's another habit that tends to sneak in early. It happens in bedrooms across the country, often within minutes of waking up. A glance at a glowing screen, a scroll through updates and headlines, a flood of information and emotion before the body has had time to regulate itself. And while it seems harmless, perhaps even comforting, it may be quietly flooding the system with stress before the feet have touched the floor. Let's take a closer look now at what happens inside the body when this early morning behavior becomes routine, and why it might be putting your brain and blood vessels under strain long before breakfast even has a chance to help. 2. Looking at your phone or turning on the news first thing. It's become one of the most common habits in modern life. The alarm goes off, or maybe it's just the soft light of morning creeping through the window, and almost without thinking, the hand reaches toward the phone. A quick glance at the time turns into a scroll through the news. Maybe there's a message waiting. Maybe the headlines catch your eye. For some, it's not a phone, but the television remote, flipping on the news before feet even touch the ground. It feels routine, even comforting. But for people over 65, this small action in the first few moments of the day can quietly place the body under serious stress. The early minutes after waking are not just ordinary time. They're a period of adjustment. Your blood pressure naturally rises. The heart rate begins to increase. Hormones shift to guide your body from a state of deep rest into readiness for the day. It's a delicate transition, and it happens every single morning. The brain, still heavy with sleep, is beginning to reorient itself. Muscles start to respond. Organs begin their rhythm again. The body expects a gradual rise. What it doesn't expect is a sudden flood of stimulation. When the first thing you take in is news filled with tension, disturbing images, or emotionally charged updates, when your first thoughts are shaped by conflict, deadlines, or the weight of the world, you disrupt that gentle process. The sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for your fight or flight response, kicks into high gear. Cortisol, the stress hormone, surges. The heart rate spikes. Blood vessels constrict. The blood becomes slightly thicker, and the body begins operating as if it's under threat, even though there's no actual emergency at hand. For those with a sensitive cardiovascular system, perhaps with a history of hypertension, high cholesterol, or a prior cardiac event, this artificial stress response becomes more than just uncomfortable. It can push the body toward risk. Over time, repeating this habit every morning can condition the body to live in a state of chronic tension. The heart and blood vessels are asked to perform under pressure that never lets up. Memory can begin to falter. Mood may become less stable, and the body's ability to recover from stress weakens. This pattern builds silently. Most won't notice what's happening. There's no warning, no tightness in the chest, no dizziness, just a gradual shift into a higher stress state that becomes the new normal. Until one day, the system can't absorb any more pressure, and a single event, like a stroke, arrives without warning and changes everything. The solution, thankfully, is within reach, and it doesn't require abandoning the news or giving up the tools you rely on. It simply means adjusting how and when you engage with them. Instead of reaching for a screen or remote the moment you wake, allow your body the chance to rise slowly. Sit up without rushing. Let your breathing find a steady rhythm. Drink some water to rehydrate after the night. Let natural light meet your skin. These small acts invite calm rather than tension. When you give the brain and body a gentle entry into the day, you allow serotonin, the body's natural mood balancer, to rise. Your heart rate stays in check. Blood flows more freely to the brain. Mental clarity improves, but without the hidden cost that comes with adrenaline or cortisol. This isn't just about peace of mind. It's about real physiological stability. It's about protecting the systems that keep you safe and strong. This simple shift in your morning rhythm can ripple out through the entire day. You'll likely notice more focus, steadier energy, and fewer dips in mood or blood pressure. And over time, your cardiovascular system thanks you for not starting the day in a state of alarm. What's most powerful is that this change doesn't require hours of meditation or a major overhaul. Just a few quiet minutes before letting the world in. A brief pause before the noise. A moment of care that reminds your body it's safe, supported, and not in a rush. But this is just one part of the picture. Because while stimulation from screens may raise tension quickly, there's another morning habit that seems soft and soothing, even helpful, yet it places a different kind of pressure on the body. Not from what you see or hear, but from what you don't do. And it's a habit that can quietly keep your blood pressure elevated long after you've gotten out of bed. Let's now take a closer look at this next silent contributor to stroke riscone that disguises itself as comfort, but often does more harm than good, especially with age. 3. Drinking coffee or tea before water. For many older adults, the morning doesn't truly begin until that first warm sip of coffee or tea. It's more than just a beverage, it's a ritual. The feel of the cup, the rising steam, the familiar taste date brings a sense of comfort and order to the day. In households across the country, this small habit has become a sacred part of the morning rhythm. But as soothing as it may seem, having coffee or tea before anything else can quietly strain a body already working to reawaken after hours of sleep. When the body wakes, it does so after a long period without fluids. Whether the sleep was restful or restless, the body has been dehydrated for at least 7 or 8 hours. During that time, the blood becomes slightly thicker, circulation slows, the organs, especially the brain and kidneys, begin the day in a dry state. And when the first thing introduced to this thirsty system is a dose of caffeine, the body responds, but not always in the way it needs. Caffeine, particularly when taken before hydrating, acts as a stimulant and a diuretic. It signals the kidneys to begin flushing out fluids. And that response happens even when there isn't much fluid to begin with. The result is that instead of being replenished, the body loses more water. The blood thickens further. The heart, which is already under pressure to restore normal rhythm and flow, now has to pump against tighter vessels. This additional effort can elevate blood pressure and increase the chances of clotting. That extra strain might not cause pain. It rarely announces itself. In fact, it often feels like energia, sense of clarity, alertness, or motivation to get going. But that sense of energy is powered by stress hormones like adrenaline, not true hydration or support. Underneath the surface, the heart is racing harder than necessary. The vessels are constricted, and the blood, already low in volume, becomes less smooth, more resistant, more prone to creating a clot that could travel where it doesn't belong. In a body that's over 65, where vessels are more fragile and underlying conditions are more common, this extra tension adds up. One small clot, one moment of poor flow, and everything can change. A stroke, without warning, can disrupt movement, memory, or independence all in a matter of seconds. This is not about eliminating the pleasure of a morning drink. Coffee and tea, in moderation, have their place and their benefits. The danger lies not in the drink itself, but in the timing. That first hour after waking is when the body needs restoration, not stimulation. And the good news is that the solution is simple. It doesn't require giving anything up, just shifting the order. Starting the day with a full glass of water gives your system what it truly needs. It helps thin the blood just enough to move freely. It supports the brain in regaining alertness without overreaching. It lets the kidneys function without being forced into high gear too soon. And it gives the heart the cushion it needs to begin the day without added strain. Some choose to add a pinch of natural sea salt to their morning water or a bit of fresh lemon to support hydration and replenish minerals. Others simply enjoy room temperature water, slowly and steadily. What matters most is that the body receives hydration first, before caffeine asks it to do more. Waiting just 15 to 20 minutes after drinking water before sipping coffee or tea can make a noticeable difference. The heart stays calmer, the mind stays clearer, blood vessels remain more relaxed, and the risk of early morning blood pressure spikes decreases. This small act becomes more than a habit. It becomes a gesture of care, a way to say to the body, I see what you need, and I'm willing to respond with respect, not just routine. That's the kind of wisdom that often comes with Ajinout, the absence of comfort, but the presence of thoughtful balance. And yet, even with hydration and care, there is one more habit that many older adults fall into without realizing it. A behavior so subtle, it doesn't seem harmful at all. In fact, it can feel gentle, safe, even necessary, especially on cold mornings or slow days. But this one small choice may be placing quiet but constant pressure on your heart. It happens not in motion, but in stillness. Let's now turn to the next hidden morning danger zone that requires nothing more than staying right where you are. And yet, its impact on your cardiovascular system can be just as serious as anything you consume. 4. Holding in urine after waking. It's a small choice, made in quiet moments tone that feels so routine, most people never question it. You wake up in the early morning hours still tucked under warm blankets. There's an urge to get up and use the bathroom, but instead you stay where you are. Maybe the room feels too cold, maybe your joints are stiff, or maybe it's just habit to lie still and wait a little longer. Telling yourself just a few more minutes becomes second nature. It feels harmless, but for someone over 65, that delay, however small, can quietly place unnecessary strain on your body in ways that few realize. Holding in urine after waking isn't just a matter of comfort or convenience, it's a decision that has ripple effects throughout your entire system. The bladder, by design, is meant to hold waste only for a certain stretch of time. After hours of rest, it's full. When the body signals that it's time to release, it's doing so for a reason. Ignoring that message forces the bladder to stretch beyond its normal limits, triggering internal pressure that the body now has to manage. As the bladder expands under tension, the body responds by activating the stress response. One of the first things that happens is a surge in blood pressure. The cardiovascular system, which is already in a fragile state during the early hours of the morning, suddenly faces a wave of internal strain. Blood vessels constrict, the heart begins to work harder, and if there are pre-existing conditions like hypertension or heart disease, this additional stress may be more than the body is equipped to handle. This pattern might not cause symptoms right away. That's what makes it so easy to overlook. But over time, this simple habit can contribute to weakened bladder function, more frequent urinary tract infections, and for some, it increases the risk of cardiac events and stroke. The pressure placed on the heart during these early moments can, in certain situations, act as the tipping point, especially for older adults whose blood vessels are already stiffened by age or narrowed by plaque. One woman, Elaine, 78, experienced this in a way she never expected. She had a long-standing habit of staying in bed after waking, often ignoring the need to use the restroom until later in the morning. One day, after doing exactly that, she stood up to start her routine and suddenly felt dizzy and weak. Within moments, she collapsed. The cause, her doctors later said, was a sharp spike in blood pressure combined with long-term urinary retention habits that had slowly weakened her body's ability to respond. Elaine had no idea that something so ordinary could have such dramatic consequences. She recovered, but the lesson stayed with her. What makes this habit so dangerous is how easy it is to justify. It doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like resting a little longer. But that delay isn't without cost. Especially in the morning, when hydration is low, blood pressure is unstable, and the body is transitioning from sleep to activity, this added pressure can quietly push your system out of balance. For some, it may lead to lightheadedness. For others, more serious cardiovascular symptoms may follow. The good news is that this is a habit that can be changed without complication. It doesn't require special equipment or training. It simply starts with paying attention. When you wake and feel that early signal from your body, the pressure, the fullness, the quiet nudge respond. Before reaching for your phone, Before turning on the light, before even sitting with your coffee or tea, get up slowly and allow your body to do what it's asking to do. This small act of attentiveness is more than a healthy practice. It's a form of self-respect. It's a way of saying that your health matters, even in the smallest, most personal moments of the day. By honoring your body's signals, you reduce internal stress, support smoother circulation, and lower your risk of early morning spikes in blood pressure. These may seem like minor improvements, but over time they build a stronger, more resilient foundation for the day ahead. And this idea of how we respond to our body in those first few minutes brings us to another risk that many seniors face without knowing it. It's not about what you drink or delay. It's about how you move. Specifically, how you get out of bed. A movement that may seem simple, even automatic, can have powerful effects on your heart, brain, and balance, especially if done too quickly. As we move forward, let's explore what happens when you sit or stand too fast, why this action can cause sudden drops in blood pressure, and how one misstep could lead to a fall or something far more serious. Because the way we transition from sleep into motion is just as important as what we eat, drink, or delay. And learning how to rise with awareness might be one of the most important steps in protecting your health each day. 5. Getting out of bed too quickly. There's a certain pride in being able to move quickly in the morning. For many older adults, rising with energy feels like a sign that strength is still there, that independence hasn't slipped away. So when the alarm sounds or the first light appears, there's an instinct to sit up, swing the legs over the side of the bed, and stand without delay. It feels like a small act of resilience. But for those over 65, especially anyone with a history of high blood pressure or circulation issues, this quick motion may be one of the riskiest parts of the day. During sleep, the body slows down. Heart rate decreases. Blood pressure drops. The blood flow redistributes while the muscles and organs rest. It's a natural state of recovery. But when morning comes, that system needs time to transition. Moving too quickly from lying down to standing upright places a sudden demand on the cardiovascular system. In younger bodies, this adjustment often happens without issue. But with age, blood vessels can become less elastic. Circulatory reflexes become slower. That quick movement can reduce blood flow to the brain before the body has time to catch up. This sudden shift doesn't just cause momentary dizziness, it can lead to orthostatic hypotension, a rapid drop in blood pressure upon standing. According to a study published in Hypertension, a journal by the American Heart Association, nearly 20% of adults over 65 experience this condition. And among them, the risk of stroke is significantly higher, particularly in those who also have chronic conditions like diabetes or cardiovascular disease. What feels like a harmless habit, getting up too fast, can quietly increase the risk of a serious health event. That drop in blood pressure can cause fainting, confusion, or even a sudden fall. And for seniors, a fall is rarely simple. It may result in broken bones, hospital stays, months of rehabilitation, or loss of mobility that may never fully return. The damage isn't only physical. The emotional weight can linger. Fear of falling again may lead to hesitation, reduced activity, and a gradual loss of confidence. All from a moment that began with too much speed and not enough care. What's easy to overlook is that the body gives subtle warnings. A wave of lightheadedness. A few seconds of blurred vision. A shaky moment before balance returns. Too often these signs are brushed off. Just tired, people say. Or, I stood up too fast, no big deal. But those moments are not random. They're messages from the body asking for a gentler approach. One that respects the natural rhythm of a system that's adjusting to a new day. Slowing down doesn't mean giving up strength. It means preserving it. Rising safely in the morning begins with stillness, opening the eyes and allowing the breath to deepen. Taking a few moments to stretch gently in bed, sitting up slowly, allowing blood pressure to rise gradually. Letting the feet rest on the floor before standing. Just 30 to 60 seconds of stillness can give the brain and heart the support they need to handle the transition smoothly. That simple pause may be the most powerful thing you do all day. There is a quiet dignity in moving with intention, a strength in choosing mindfulness over momentum. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. The body may not move like it once did, but it still deserves to be treated with care. That care pays off in steadier balance, clearer thinking, and lower risk of sudden complications. This slow rise isn't just a routine, it's protection. It reduces the chance of dangerous blood pressure swings. It helps maintain healthy circulation to the brain. And over time, it becomes a foundation of safety that supports everything else in your day. Many strokes don't happen because of one large dramatic event. They build quietly, day by day, from the way the body is treated in its most vulnerable moments. And the morning when blood pressure naturally spikes, when hydration is low, and when reflexes are still waking you up, is one of those moments. How you move, what you eat, how you breathe, even how long you lie still, all of it plays a role. And now, as these morning habits are placed side by side, it becomes clear that each one has its own weight. Skipping breakfast, reaching for screens too early, drinking caffeine before hydration, holding in urine, standing up too fast. Alone, each may seem small, but together they create a paternal rhythm of pressure that wears on the body over time. But the beauty in this truth is that it can be reversed. Just as harmful habits accumulate, so do healthy ones. Small, thoughtful changes create space for resilience. As we bring it all together, one message becomes clear. Stroke prevention doesn't always come from medication or major procedures. Often, it begins the moment you wake, with small choices, with quiet awareness, with a few extra seconds of patience, a sip of water, a step taken slowly. These moments, stacked over days, months, and years, may be the most important protection you'll ever give yourself. Let's now take a moment to reflect on how these gentle changes might come together into a simple, sustainable routine that supports your heart, your brain, and your independence. Every morning gives you a choice. And for those of us in our 60s, 70s, and beyond, that choice means more than ever. What you do in those first moments before the coffee, before the headlines, before the rush can either protect your heart or place it under silent attack. Stroke doesn't always arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes it builds slowly through habits that seem harmless until they're not. If today's video helped you recognize a pattern in your own mornings, something you've overlooked for years, let this be the moment you choose differently. A moment to say, not anymore. To say, I deserve to wake up with care, with strength, with intention. Because you do. And if this message touched something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a neighbor, a loved one. You never know whose life you might help change just by starting a conversation. Tap that like button if this spoke to your heart. Subscribe for more gentle, powerful tips that put your health back into your own hands. And please leave a comment below. Tell us one thing you're going to do differently tomorrow morning. Just one. We're in this together. And your story matters. Because aging isn't about decline. It's about rising with wisdom. And it starts the moment you open your eyes. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, rise slowly, breathe deeply, and take care of that beautiful heart of yours.